Welcome, everybody. Um, Happy Wednesday. Hope you are having a great day. Um, this is another live LinkedIn live event segment titled The Confidence Gap and Why We Play Small Even After Doing the Work. Um, gonna give a little bit of time. I know it's 12 o'clock. I just want to make sure everybody hops on. As always, if you can, shoot me a comment. I just want to make sure that the audio is working well and that you can actually hear me, right? So, if you can, just please drop a comment. Please drop a comment. Let me know. Hey, the audio is working. You can hear me pretty good. All right. So let's jump right in. Right. You've done the work, but your confidence is still lacking. Okay. And by the work, what I refer to is, you've listened to podcasts, right? You've read the books, watched some YouTube videos, did some reflection work and stuff like that. And yet your confidence still feels to disappear at the wrong moments, right? And these aren't just random symptoms, right? It's a call for something deeper. And this is what this live event is about. It's about your identity, right? Your identity not matching with your external reality. Okay. Um, this can show up in a number of different ways. It can show up as wanting to speak up in certain situations, but you just don't, or you freeze up. Um, Perhaps not signing up for a course that you want to do or some education or something like that, right? Comparing yourself online, right, to others. You feel like you're behind with that comparison. You feel like you're not doing enough. You feel like, others are way ahead of you and what are you doing wrong kind of thing. um Probably not signing up for that job or applying for that job, right, that you feel like you are very aligned for, but you're like, hey, no, you know what, it's not even worth it. I'm not going to be qualified enough. They're not going to pick me. I'm not the right person for it, etc., right? um and it's stemming from really the identity, right? And it's leading you to imposter syndrome. So I want you to realize something here. Sorry, flipping back and forth, my mouse got stuck. Um, Up to 70% of people experience imposter syndrome at some point in their professional careers. Okay. So this is not just a phenomenon that's happening simply to you only. Okay. This is, across the board, people go through this. Okay. And when you experience imposter syndrome, majority of the time when you experience it is because you are either slightly outside or extremely outside your comfort zone or what's familiar. Okay. And you feel like you're just not qualified enough, right? You feel like you're not the right person to be in that particular situation, right? The worst part about imposter syndrome, or I would say the stem roots from just fear, right? Fear of being found out as a fraud. Okay. And that's where, and it can lead in like your professional life, right? Where perhaps you got a promotion, you're a manager now, or perhaps you're a new entrepreneur, and you just feel like, "Man, it's not, it's stopping you from taking certain actions because you don't feel like you're qualified for that position that you have, your that external reality, and it's because your internal perception of yourself or your identity doesn't match that external reality yet. Okay. So I want you to listen to this real quick. Confidence isn't a mindset issue, it's an identity issue. Okay. So your actions won't outgrow your identity. Okay. So think of it like a manager just got promoted, right? And you're struggling with feeling like you just got the job because you're like telling yourself, nobody else applied. They just gave it to me, right? Or there wasn't enough applicants, or man, they made a mistake. I shouldn't be here. You're going through that imposter syndrome where you feel like you don't deserve to be where you are at. But perhaps it's because inside your identity still matches. Maybe you came from a supervisor position to a manager position. And inside you still identify as that supervisor that was more action oriented, right? More of the executioner, where now you're being asked to be more of the strategist, and that's just not you yet. Okay. You got to match that internal perception of yourself to your external reality. Okay. So even having like certain skills, even though you've been there, say you've been there 6 years or 5 years or something like that, and like what you're doing, is that internal perception of yourself that's having you go through that imposter syndrome, because it's something that's unfamiliar to you. It's something outside of your comfort zone, and you got to build yourself up to it. Okay. So let me provide you an example. Okay. You know what? I'll leave that on there so you can reflect on that. Let me provide you an example. So when I first started out my business and started coaching people and, you know, um, developing the programs that I have. And one thing, obviously, you have to do as a business owner or entrepreneur or solopreneur, right, is marketing. And part of that was everybody is all like, "Hey, you got to get on videos. You got to do videos. You got to do recordings. Put yourself out there, kind of thing." And I went through a whole process of I just didn't feel comfortable doing videos, right? I still kind of sometimes don't, right? But in the beginning, it was very, very debilitating, right? To the point where it stopped me from doing videos for quite some time. Okay. I even did like courses. I did like public speaking courses that I, bought on Udemy, or like watched videos, listen to podcasts on how to present yourself in public speaking and how to record, right? I even bought the software that I'm currently using right now. I had to buy the software to make sure that, I had the right platform, I had the right tools in order to make it happen. Okay. And I was still going through that process of thinking like, well, I'm gonna be terrible at this. Okay. Like I still felt that. And it was because my external reality, right? I am now a solopreneur. I am now a business owner. I am now a coach. I didn't identify with that inside yet. Okay. I was still in the process of kind of thinking about everything, right? How everything's gonna go. So my thought process was still, well, you were just, working for somebody else in a leadership position, but you were working for somebody else. You weren't an entrepreneur, you weren't a coach, right? And so I had to take my identity and match my external reality for it, right? And that's where I was struggling a lot. That's where I was a lot of my imposter syndrome came from perfectionism, right? Um I felt like, well, the video has to be right. The video lighting has to be right. The quality has to be 1080p. I have to have the right microphone. I have to have the right background. Your script has to be perfect. And then you go into a little bit of the fear, right? Because I was thinking of the perfectionism of it, and then it led me to thinking of the fear of it. Well, you're going to have judgment, right? People are going to judge you. What if they don't agree with you? What if they challenge you on what you say? What if you don't say something in the right way? What if you just look dumb? Right. And people just criticize you and tell you, like, hey, dude, like, you shouldn't be doing this. Right. So I had to go through that whole process, but still, my identity, my internal identity, right? What I was thinking of myself and the perception I had of myself, I wasn't Coach John, right? I was still employee John. I had to work my mindset to getting to that role. Okay. And, I would still hear the whispering of like, oh, dude, you're going to suck. Right. And I had to kind of work myself through that. So this is something that I found very interesting. I believe it was from the Journal of Behavioral Science. Okay. And I believe it was a 2019 article, but they stated on there that millennials were conditioned for external validation, which is grades, likes, follower accounts, and so many of us built success without the internal identity to match it. Okay, so I believe a part of our confidence comes from our experiences, right? What you experience, what you go through, or what's that saying? What you go through, you grow through, right? And part of a millennial's identity is formed at a younger age, right? Um, we had a certain phenomenon happen, right, that no prior generation really kind of went through, and that's access to the world, social media, right? So, and think about it like this: in 2004, when Facebook came out, I was 19 years old. Okay, now some of y'all may have been a little bit younger. I think millennials have like a 16-year age range. Okay, so if you were younger, right, you're in the development stage of your internal persona, right? Who you are as a person, your values, your strengths, right? Your faith, what you truly believe, what type of person you are, your character building, everything like that is kind of developed in that time frame, right? Where you're starting to explore yourself because chances are you're off on your own now, right? You're not necessarily maybe not living with your parents anymore, right? And you're kind of being able to make the decisions yourself and do things yourself, right? And along the way, what your parents' definition of success was the do good in school, get good grades, go to college, get hired at a great company, make great money, buy the house, live the American dream, live the perfect life, right? Okay, now for millennial, we got disrupted. We got disrupted with social media and the way we developed our internal self, right? Because instead of developing during that time when social media came out, it almost trained us for external validation. Okay. Instead of John looking at himself and saying, John, you are good enough. John, this is your values. John, this is what you hold dear to you. This is a type of man you are. This is a type of, father you're going to be. This is the type of son you are. This is the type of friend you are. You value this. And, so instead of going through that process, now you're kind of tricked. I want to say like tricked into looking for external validation, not only from just your community, right? Because before social media, it was really your external validation came from the neighborhood that you were in, your parents, your close friends, maybe even the city that you're in. Like, kind of, it was kind of a confined area, right? Now with social media, you're validating yourself to the world, right? You have access to the entire world now. So now you're starting, okay, well, should I say that or should I not say that? Because then somebody might get mad. I might offend somebody. What should I do? Oh, I see everybody else says go to college, go to college, go to college, go to college. Let me go to college, right? You're starting to do things that maybe you don't want to do for that external validation, right? For your parents to tell you, hey, you're doing the right thing, going to college, getting good grades, things like that, right? Okay, now I say that to say this. Fast forward, fast forward 20 years from 2004 to 2024. Okay. A successful millennial, right? Good job, degree, right? Perfect LinkedIn, right? But you're still doubting yourself, right? You still lack that confidence. You're still lacking on your worth, right? You're essentially working for approval, not alignment right now. Okay. And the crazy thing is that this story isn't necessarily, or this concept, I should say, isn't necessarily just like here and there. It's almost like the millennial blueprint. Okay. It's almost like the success millennial burnout story, right? It's outward success and internal belief, right? That's where that confidence disappears. Okay. Because you're, like I mentioned before, your internal perception doesn't match your external reality. Okay. And then once you perhaps it's happening, and I feel like it's happening to millennials now that we are kind of perhaps either backing off of social media a little bit or finally just getting to a mature enough stage in our life where we are truly reflecting inside and really doing the work that we should have done then in that introspective like realm where we're identifying our value strengths, what we like, what we don't like, who we are, our characters, things like that. And I feel like that's where a lot of this millennial burnout, this millennial stagnation, where you look great on paper, but you're still miserable on the inside. Okay. And it's almost like that millennial blueprint, right? Um, I want you to consider this imposter syndrome, because chances are if that resonated with you and you are feeling this imposter syndrome and you are lacking that confidence right now, it's not proof that you're unqualified, it's proof that you're evolving. Okay, consider what happens when you're feeling that imposter syndrome. Like I mentioned before, it's because you're either slightly outside or largely outside your comfort zone or what's familiar. Okay, now take the role of your brain. Okay, your brain is a survival tool, right? It's meant to help you survive. All right, that's literally and it is not a success tool. All right, so that means that even though you know what you should be doing or what you should do, right? Like saying, I lack confidence right now as a first time manager. I know I need to get some extra skill. I know I need to take some different actions. I need to start thinking differently. I need to perhaps open myself up to constructive criticism, things like that. It's scary. So your body revolts it. Your body tells you, hey, stay away from that. Your brain's starting to tell you, and not even just tell you, but you're going through a chemical reaction in your entire body where it's telling you, stay away from that. That's danger, right? Even if that's your next level. Okay. And that can show up in many ways. For imposter syndrome, it can show up as like self doubt, right? It can show up as like overthinking, or what I mentioned earlier, the fear of being found out that you're a fraud, right? That, oh, I don't belong here. I shouldn't be a manager, right? Um, it can show up like it did for me as perfectionism. I can't make a move. I can't make the next move until I get this perfect. Till I have the entire video quality, the perfect video script, the perfect microphone for the video I want to do. Like I can't make a move until it's all completely perfect, right? And majority of the time it just leads to overwhelm, right? This is very common in high achievers, especially in high achieving millennials. Okay. High achieving millennials that are, I don't want to say, I don't think the right word would be craving, but somewhere close to that, like conditioned, I would say conditioned. Especially high achieving millennials that are conditioned for external validation. Okay. So that high achieving millennial is already highly competitive, right? Maybe they just got that natural drive. And then when you're conditioned for external validation, you want people to say, yes, John is doing great. He's at that great company. He's making great money. He has a great house, perfect wife, perfect kids, everything like that. And that's what I said earlier. On paper, it all looks great. Inside, John was not doing so great. Okay. Um, and I want to share a little bit about how that process went. So I did when I left the active duty army in 2015. I spent 7 years just trying to hit that goal. Right, spent 7 years trying to hit that goal, and I finally got there. Right, the goal was the great job with great title, right, and a great company. Sorry, and I got there. I was making six figures at a Fortune 100 company in a leadership position, right? And when I got there, I didn't feel aligned anymore. Now, my imposter syndrome was reversed. So let me explain this a little bit. Remember earlier how I said your imposter syndrome or your lack of confidence can be coming from your external reality does not match your introspection or your internal identity, right? So whatever's going on outside, the external reality, I am a new manager. Inside, I still feel like a supervisor. I need to bridge that gap in between. Okay. That's where your identity is not matching your external reality. And that's what you got to work on. For me, my external reality was misaligned with my identity. Okay, so inside goals and things that the new John wanted to accomplish, right? But externally, I was still living the old John's way of life, right? I was still chasing old John's goals and I was living old John's dreams. Okay, so that was my instance where instead of going from my external reality needs to match my identity, I had to go from my identity needs to match my external reality because my identity was different now. Okay, so from that aspect, I had to really reflect, take time and pause and just really reflect on, well, how has John changed? How have I developed over these past 7 years? And what is, hey, look, my cup, right, John? Sorry. And what does that mean, right? For me, now. Okay. And that's where I figured it out. I'm like, I was still working, right? I'm not happy because I was working on old John's goals, right? And somewhere along the line, I didn't stop and pause enough to realize that those goals didn't matter to me anymore. They weren't important to me anymore because my values had shifted, my perspectives had shifted, my strengths, right, were still my strengths, but I was using them in a different way, right? So let me explain that a little bit. Something that I didn't catch. One of my strengths is curiosity, and this is one of my main strengths. I'm a very curious person. Old John used to use this strength as picking at the operations, right? And this is what made me very good at strategizing operations and kind of being a good leader, right? I mean, like I wouldn't say pride myself, but I went above and beyond to be the best leader I could to help my team, right? The organizations that I was with. And that curiosity led a lot of that because I would constantly ask questions. I would ask questions about the operation. How is this done? Why do we do things like this? Who is that? What do they do? Like things like that, which led me to really develop acumen for whatever I was doing really quickly. But now I noticed in New John wasn't necessarily interested in just the operation. New John was interested in the people that are running the operation. Right. So it led me down kind of a rabbit hole where I started learning how I had changed over that time. And part of that was really the people. Right. One thing that I looked back on was, well, part of all the things that I had done over the past 7 years, the thing that really stood out was not necessarily the jobs, the titles, the money I was making, but the people that I was working with and helping, right? Even from a job perspective, right? Helping those people, and some of them were through personal issues, right? Some of them I got to know pretty well, where we would have conversations about personal issues that they were going through. I would, listen to them, give them a little bit of tips or advice or some of my perspective because of my experience, things like that. So, and that's what really stood out to me was the people, and this is what led me to doing what I do now, which is the coaching, right? So I had to go from that aspect of matching instead of matching my external reality to my identity, I had to match my identity. I had to match my sorry, I think I said that wrong. I had to match my identity to my external reality, or external reality to my identity. All right. Sorry, got it all rambled up there. But that's what I had to do. So it's either or. And that's something that you need to ask yourself is that, do you need to match your external identity to your external reality to your identity, or is it because your external reality is misaligned with your identity? Okay, so I want you to ask that to yourself, and you might be thinking now, well, John, how do I kind of get there, right? And this is something that I would advise you do, this is pretty much the example that I just gave you right now. On step one, that you can start doing this, right, is just doing an identity audit. And this is simply asking yourself, who am I becoming? And do my actions match the person I am becoming? Okay. So for my example was just, who am I becoming now? Right. I was no longer, I had to shift that mindset from like, well, my identity now is more along the lines of a coach, right? I like coaching people. I like helping people find their next step, find their next moment, like especially people that feel stagnant, that feel stuck. I love helping them break out of there, right? I love helping, giving them a different perspective on life that just catapults them to the next step, right? Just to help them get there, even if it's a small step forward, right? And in that process, I had to ask myself, well, who am I becoming? Well, I'm becoming Coach John, right? Are my actions speaking to that right now? Well, no, they weren't, right? Because I was still an employee. I was still working for another company, right? I was still living old John's life and goals and dreams, right? So now I had to go through the process of like, well, my actions aren't matching because I'm still living the old John. So then what is the new John? So it helped me kind of go back to that, who am I becoming? What are new John's goals? What is new John's vision? Where does new John want to be in the next 3 years, 2 years, 5 years? What is new John's strengths, values, right? I had to go through that whole process. So if you do an identity audit, it can start helping you identify what areas of growth you've gone through, depending on your situation. If you're like me, you might have to reflect for a little bit. This ain't gonna be, I'll be really upfront. This identity audit was not done in one sitting. Okay. It was done over several sittings, over several reflection periods, several walks, several dog walks, several sessions at the gym. Okay. But it's just constantly asking yourself that, who am I becoming? Who am I becoming? Who am I becoming? And just keep reflecting on that. Reflect on it, but then ask yourself that second portion: do my actions support this or not? All right. And figure that out. Why, how does it support it, or why doesn't it support it? And figure out why. Okay. That would lead you to tip number two, or step number two that I want to give you is micro steps, not giant leaps. Okay. Hold on. Let me fix this real quick, guys. I like it to scroll so you can see it. All right. Micro steps, not giant leaps. Okay. So, in my example, right, of pivoting from that job, a micro step I committed to was just learning about it, because here I am, John, that worked in transportation, logistics, and distribution for the past 18 years, right? From military to private sector, from small companies to large companies, from leading everything, right? So I had to shift that mindset to, okay, well, where do I start? Like, where does Coach John start, right? And just a simple step for me to do was just to learn about coaching, right? I had so many questions at the time, right? When I was thinking about, okay, if I want to coach people, if I want to help people through this step, right? What do I do? Do I become a life coach? But how does that help if I'm helping somebody with their job? So does that make me a career coach? Well, what if I want to help somebody completely transform their life? Do I need to go be a transformation coach? Well, what if I'm working with somebody that's a high place, a manager or director at some place? Do I need to be an executive coach? Right. So there was a lot of questions. And then it was like, how do I get certified? How do I start learning about this stuff? What what tools are out there for me to utilize so I can start kind of stepping into that new John role? Right. So part of that was just me setting the micro step that every day I was going to commit to anywhere between 30 minutes to 1 hour of learning, right? A lot of the times, because this was so passion driven for me, a lot of the times I found myself doing like 2, 3 hours. Okay. As much as I could, I would find myself after going to work sitting on a computer, getting on my phone, listening to a podcast, reading a certain book, like things like that. It was very passion driven for me. But just committing to a small step like that, like even if you did 30 minutes or an hour of learning something or of doing something that's going to help you align that new identity or that new external reality, right? To be able to build that confidence again. Okay. And it can be something very simple of use a manager, right? A new manager getting promoted from a supervisor position. If your actions don't speak to you confidently acting as a manager, so what's something that you can invoke or do for 30 minutes every day? And it can be as something as simple as just, well, 30 minutes every day as a manager, I'm going to go out, I'm going to talk to my leadership team, and I'm going to see what problem I can help them solve. But I am going to do that within 30 minutes, a micro little problem that I can help, so I can start stepping into that role of asking them as a manager, where do you see that we need to fix something, right? Start kind of taking on that role, right? Because you're asked to be, you're asked to go from something of being an executioner to a strategizer, right? And that 30 minutes may just take yourself over there, right? To talk to those leaders and just simply ask them, hey, what do we need to fix on here? What's going on that I can help with? What's going on that you need either my influence or my position to help with? Oh, we got X, Y, and Z. Okay, let's work on Y right now. What do we do? What is your recommendation, right? Start stepping into that manager role where you're actually mentoring and leading and strategizing problem solving. All right. It can be as simple as that and just doing it 30 minutes a day. 30 minutes a day to help you start building that confidence, right? And aligning your identity so you're outgrowing that supervisor identity to that manager identity. Okay. And like I said, for mine, if you have to, if you have to get from your external reality because you have to match that external reality because it's misaligned with your identity, like it was in my situation, something simple that I did was just, like I said, started learning about coaching, started learning about what the coaching industry is. How do you get certified? Do you need to be certified? If you want to get certified, where do you go? Where's the best reputable place is, right? Like just kind of learning about the whole scheme of thing. I looked into a lot of them. I already know where I'm getting certified. I'm already working on that right now. But it's just those small little steps on just driving forward, right? Just driving forward and just taking action towards where you want to be aligned and where you want to grow that confidence. All right. And lastly is step number three. Look, you know what? Let me fix this one as well. I don't like it when it stands still like that. I like it when it scrolls. Maybe just personal preference, but let me know if you like it, if it scrolls or if it's just standstill. Um, Step number three, data over drama. Okay, so there will come a time, even when you're doing the identity audit, right? Even if you're taking micro steps, there's going to come a time where imposter syndrome is going to hit, your confidence is going to start diminishing and start going down. Even if you're taking the micro steps, even if you're getting more clarity on who you're becoming and who you're turning into, right? And aligning your actions to identify with that, there's still going to come a time where imposter syndrome is going to come and tap you on the shoulder and be like, hey, I'm still here, right? You don't belong here. Okay. Data over drama simply is create yourself a proof file. Okay. Something that I would do. It's up to you if you want to do it, or probably an easier way would be on your phone. But I used to carry around flashcards like this. Okay. I have my other ones, but I used to carry around just simple flashcards like this. For note taking, right? And those notes are specifically for those small wins. All right. So setting up your steps, that 30 minutes, right, that you do when, you're devoting yourself to, okay, I'm taking this action so I can align that identity, right? But when imposter syndrome comes back, your data file or your proof file is going to be your first reaction. Okay. Because remember, you have your brain working against you, right? Those chemical reactions in you that's pumping you and telling you, hey, we got a situation going on. This is scary. This is dangerous. I want to get out of here, right? You're having to work against that, and you're having to work against, just the mindset, that whispering in your head that's telling you, like, get out of here. Nope, this is too hard. Nope, you're not going to be able to do it. Things like that. Your first reaction needs to be going back to that profile. So I used to literally carry around these in my backpack, right? Flashcards or index cards, whatever you want to call them, or you can just simply do it. You can simply do it on your notes, on your phone, right? But you track all your little wins. So even if it's something as simple as the 30 minutes that you went, okay, I went down, um you set like a time, and be not very specific with the details, but very specific with the timing, right? On today, on July 9th, 2025 at 12:35 p.m., I went down, I spoke with my frontline leadership. I asked them their opinions on what needs to be fixed, where I can help, where they might need my title, my position, or my influence to get something done. They presented me with seven problems. We focused on one. We got some traction going on that first one. Boom. That's it. Like, there's your win. There's your win that you're stepping into that manager role. Okay. So whenever you doubt it, whenever it sneaks back up, that's where you first go. And that's where you kind of review, and it's almost like think of it like a like a confidence recharge, right? Like, hey, your confidence is diminishing, right? As you're learning, it's going up, and you're like, oh, cool, I'm at 78%, I'm at 82, whatever, right? Something happens, imposter syndrome kicks in really hard, and all of a sudden your battery drains to like 35%. And you're like, oh man, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling just like I was before. This ain't working. I might as well just stop now. Like, trust me, it's going to kick it. Okay. This is where your data file or your proof file will come in handy, because it will remind you of the progress that you've made, of the things that you've already overcome. And it's showing that your actions are aligning with that new identity. Okay, so keep that proof file on you, right? Wherever you go, probably the easiest on your phone, to help you just get from 35% to 42, from 42 to 53. 53, hey, let's get it back. Let's get it back. Let's get it back. All right. That's why I say it's like a confidence recharge. All right. And lastly, I wanted to leave you with a little insight and just a little reminder. Okay. This is something that I found as well in Journal of Behavioral Science. So it says millennials report the highest level of self doubt and professional imposter feelings, despite being the most educated generation to date. Okay. Really, 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 you know what? I want this to scroll as well. Really, really, really think about this. Okay. Because millennials being the most educated, and I would even argue that you can still get even smarter, even build more skills right now as well. Um, the internet has been, even though it kind of came in at a time where I feel like it kind of shifted, or like kind of sideswiped millennials a little bit, especially on the development part. It still is a great tool for you to learn. I mean, you can learn pretty much anything you want to learn these days on the computer, on your phone, listening to a podcast, a YouTube video, whatever it may be. But this really hits something that I truly believe in, and that I am working hard to pretty much get smarter at, to help you. Okay. And that even though we have the highest level of education in a generation, we are still reporting the most self doubt and professional imposter feelings. Okay. And like I said before, I feel like all of that stems from that time where we were supposed to be developing our inner selves. Okay. And like I said, part of my part of my identity is to get smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter, so I can help you figure that development piece out, right? So I can piece together your 14, 16, 19, 20-year old self, whatever that person was when social media came out and disrupted our development as millennials, to now. Okay. And if you are feeling any of this imposter syndrome, you're feeling burnout, you feel stuck, that is specifically what I am working on with millennials to help them get to that next level, to help them find the clarity, to help them develop a strategy, and to help keep them accountable towards action to getting to their next step. Okay. So I want you to remember this: confidence isn't built by waiting for the fear to leave you, it's built by acting while it's still loud. Okay. So if you're feeling imposter syndrome, if you're feeling stuck or misaligned or burnt out or something like that, right, that your confidence is lacking, okay, this is a sign. This is a sign that you're somewhere where you are uncomfortable. You are somewhere where it's outside your range, right? What you are used to, what you find familiar, okay? This is a sign of growth, but you have to take action. You have to take a step forward, right? Even if it's this big, right? You got to move forward. And some of that is just simply reflecting, right? As a millennial, trying to coach other millennials on this, I strongly suggest reflection first. Okay. Reflect and find out what your identity is. Find out who you are becoming and if your actions are aligning with it or not. Okay. So I appreciate you. I hope you found some value in this. Remember steps one, two, and three. Step one, identity audit. Step two, micro steps, not giant leaps. And step three, data over drama. Okay. Set up your profile, guys. All right. And if you found this useful, hey, please send it to somebody that can benefit from listening to this, especially for my millennial audience. Um, if you want some more clarity and tools, if you're not quite sure, right, you're feeling too stuck that you're not sure where even to start, visit my website. It's www.professiontoPurpose.com. There is a career clarity quiz that you can take on there that'll provide you a little bit more insight and give you some information on what type of transformation you are ready for, or if you're barely getting to that awareness part, right? Plus, it'll also enroll you into my newsletter. Go ahead, do the career clarity quiz, enroll into the newsletter, and you'll receive weekly tips just on career reflection, on different perspectives, and a couple action tips that you can take and implement in your life and in your career. Okay, to help you align yourself and stay aligned with what you should be doing, right? Which hopefully is your purpose and your passion. Okay. I am John. I appreciate you, sticking with me and would love it. Share this, guys. Like it, comment. I would love to hear your thoughts. If you're trying any of the steps, I would love to get your feedback and see how it went. All right. Awesome. Have a great Wednesday, y'all.